welcome to the Film Whisperers, where two movie nerds talk all things movies with a contemporary lens. My name is Saj.
And my name is Matthew.
How are you, Matthew?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. I feel like probably similar to yourself. So I've just been at home, obviously, because we're in lockdown. And even though we're getting quite bored of it, one of my saving graces is that I've been able to watch a lot of movies at home and revisit some of the older ones that sometimes I don't get the time to watch. So I've kind of enjoyed being able to do that, particularly on the weekends. How about yourself?
Yeah, same. There's been quite a lot of content that's been released on some of the streaming services. Films from the 70s and 80s that some I haven't seen. Some I'm revisiting because they've sort of remastered it. It's all now in HD.
Yeah. Well, so what's the topic today, Saj? What are we looking at?
Well, given that we've been watching these older films, I thought we could talk specifically about the 80s and the 80s movies that we've been watching and what it's like to watch some of them now in 2021 and sort of have that contemporary lens, which is what we're about. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a great idea. I feel like it's so interesting because over the last few years, there's been like this resurgence of like new TV shows and new movies that kind of like have that 80s aesthetic. Like it's like there's this thing for nostalgia at the moment where shows like Stranger Things or even that Fear Street trilogy that was on Netflix a little while ago, they're trying to really like take us back to the 80s and 90s because I think people want to see that nostalgia. But a lot of stuff hasn't aged well from back then. So it's interesting to kind of look at it now, decades later, and just see how whether it's aged well or not. So I guess to start off with, let's focus on the good ones though, ones that have stood the test of time or that, we still like decades later. What's one that sticks out for you, Saj?
When people usually ask me what my favorite films are, there's two in that list that are from the 80s, but and I'm not going to talk about that today because I feel like I have spoken about Back to the Future and The Breakfast Club in the past. But today, a really good 80s film that I think is one of the best depictions of female relationships is Steel Magnolias. When it came out, obviously I don't remember it. I was certainly born, but I don't remember it. But I watched it much later when I was a teenager, and I found it really fascinating to see how amazingly well these female characters were written. The performances in this film were just absolutely amazing. You have the remarkable Sally Field in the lead role, Julia Roberts in one of her very, very first films. There was Shirley MacLaine playing the iconic character of Weezer, and then of course Dolly Parton, and she does this amazing job. I cannot remember her character's name, but she pretty much is the lady that runs the hairdressing salon, and of course there's Daryl Hannah as well. And what I really like about this film is that I believe it is written by a man. I know, if I'm not mistaken, he does identify as a gay man. And what inspired him to write this film is because he said when he would go to a funeral in the area of America that he's from, he would notice how with the men there was always that feeling of stoicness and the inability of them to express their feelings. And I'm guessing where he's from, the men and women during a funeral, they tend to be in separate rooms. But then when he would go to the area where his mum was, where all the women were, there was so much more joy and there was so much more emotion, and that was how they dealt with the situation. And I think that's what inspired him to write these really amazing female characters.
I was going to say, I actually have never seen it, and I really want to. Like, it's one of those ones that's been on my list for ages because I just know that it's like totally up my alley, like a little bit of a melodrama, but it's about female friendships and relationships, and and obviously it has like a stellar cast, so it's been on my list for a long time. But it's just shot up to the top because you reminded me that I need to watch it. But do you feel like if you were watching it for the first time now, that you would still get the same enjoyment from it and enjoy it the same way you did when you first watched it as a teenager?
I think we've got to call out the lack of racial diversity in it because it's predominantly an all-white cast. And I think that's something that I know if they were to remake it or if they were to do that today, that's something that they're going to need to fix. Of course, at the time, you're looking at older characters. These are older female characters, so that's the casting of older female actresses. And at the time, I'm guessing there probably wasn't many people of color, women of color in Hollywood that could have taken on some of these roles. But I think that would be something that would really bug me if a production like that came out in 2021.
You can appreciate it for what it is now, looking back, but yeah, I mean, do they make movies like that now? I don't know. Maybe they do, but yeah, it's interesting. Like, I feel like if the same movie were to be made today, they would definitely probably have like a more diverse cast, just because
Well, it's interesting that you say that, Matt, because I feel as if I always think that movies like that have I guess diversity for its time, which is all women, it does tend to open doors for more and more productions that come out that feature these predominantly female casts. And the only production that or only sort of film/TV show I can compare Steel Magnolias to that shows older women having really profound relationships is Big Little Lies. And that's an all-white cast, and that came out in, I think it was 2018. So I don't know, it's interesting. But then at the same time, we had Desperate Housewives that did have some sort of diversity with the Eva Longoria character. So I don't know. I think it just depends, really. That's just my take. But look, enough about Steel Magnolias. I really want to hear what your pick is.
Kind of on a similar train to what the one that you mentioned. I guess mine would probably be Beaches. So obviously the Bette Midler film. I watched that similar to yourself when I was a teenager, and I feel like it was just, I mean, obviously it's a melodrama, it's very soapy, but I really enjoyed and really loved how it kind of represented female friendship. And even for its time, it didn't only look at, female friendship and gender, but it also looked at class, like, these two women from very different backgrounds, I guess finding common ground. And it was just really heartening. And I feel like, a lot of films that have been made since that are specifically focused on two women friends are indebted in a way to movies like Beaches, because it was a really great example of how to portray female friendship in a really kind of heartwarming and positive way. It wasn't about them trying to climb over each other to get to the top. It wasn't about them like backstabbing each other. It was quite like wholesome, for lack of a better word. So
we all know that Beaches has a massive following by a lot of cis gay men. Why do you reckon that is?
I can only speak for myself, but I think that growing up, I struggled to make sincere, genuine friendships with straight cis men, and there weren't any gay people at my school, so a lot of my close friends were women. And so when I watched films about straight guys being friends at like a frat house or something, I just didn't connect with it at all. But when I saw movies about women or women friendships, I just felt like it resonated a lot more with me and my experiences. So I don't know, I can't speak for other people, but I think that would probably be kind of where it resonated for me, at least. But I think that we might be running out of time. So thank you so much for chatting with me today, Saj, about our favorite 80s movies, or ones that have kind of stood the test of time. And thank you for tuning in at home. You've been watching The Film Whisperers on Bent TV.